Hi, I'm Amy Finley, and this is Across the Fence. Today, we're talking about something that's been in short supply lately, rain. We begin with a video from Lake Champlain's Sea Grant about a rain garden at the East Rise Credit Union in Montpelier. As you'll see, installing a rain garden is a low-impact idea that reduces runoff and protects natural resources from pollutants. Now, if we could only get some rain.
It just seemed like a win-win to us when it was presented to the organization.
We knew it was in the floodplain. People were nervous about that they're really not supposed to go in floodplains. Having now done this project, I think it's absolutely the right application for it. And I wouldn't have known that without the flood.
What if something as simple as a garden could help clean our rivers and protect our communities from flooding? This video shares the story and lessons learned of a rain garden built in Montpelier, Vermont, along the Winooski River. How it filters polluted runoff, survived a major flood, and proves itself a model for resilient, low-cost stormwater infrastructure. Through trial, error, and dedication, it's a powerful example of how small-scale green solutions can make a big impact downstream.
A rain garden has a number of benefits for water quality. First off, you're typically installing native vegetation, so it does create a kind of a little bit of habitat. And then the plants and the construction provides a way to absorb and slow down stormwater. And as that water takes a bit more time in that rain garden, it's able to be cooled down. You see a removal of sediment and nutrients before that water ultimately flows into the Winooski River.
When we first were made aware of the project, it's a huge parking lot, and that first flush of rain would have a lot of pollutants in it, and it was just going straight into the Winooski, no filters, nothing to slow it down. That was a huge opportunity to put in something that could take on that amount of water, slow it down, filter it before it went into that storm drain. At the beginning, we were like, let's make it as small as we can so it's easier maintenance. And it turns out that that's putting a lot of pressure on the rain garden, and we're getting bigger and bigger storm events that are more frequent. And so bigger would have been better. So that was a learning curve. It was 420 square feet when we first put it in 2020.
This rain garden design controlled storm water runoff for 3 years and even proved resilient after the July 2023 flood.
When the flood happened, of course, it was up to the building, the water. It was fully inundated, and it took on a ton of sediment. So it just looked like a big sand dune was now in the middle of the rain garden. But what was interesting was, after the floods, the rain garden started working again. Not at its potential, certainly not at the capacity that was working before the flood, but it was taking on parking lot water. It was filtering. Water was no longer going directly into the Winooski again, so it started working again within a few days of it flooding, which I found to be fascinating.
In 2024, the system was restored with planning and care to function more effectively.
The second time around, we put shrubs in, really trying to get in different root systems. And then the other one was just enlarging it. That extra 10 feet made a huge difference with how much water it could take on. There is, of course, maintenance up front, and that's mainly getting plants established. So the big thing is, then you come in the spring, and that's a big cleanup. It's much more than mowing. But then after that, the maintenance really becomes less and less. It's a garden that's meant to look very natural. The only real regular maintenance that will not change is the cleaning out the forebay. It really doesn't take long. In the 4 years that I had been maintaining it, I would clean out the forebay every 6 weeks-ish, and it would take maybe an hour.
There's some offsetting costs here too, right? So I think about other direct costs that we had with the traditional stormwater system we had out there with the catch basins and the structures we had out there. We would pay somebody to come in on a regular basis, or required to do that, to pump out and clean out the sumps and all of our stormwater.
The East Rise Rain Garden is proof that with strong community partners, thoughtful planning, and a commitment to care, a project can remain both beautiful, functional, and resilient through challenges.
This is something that could be done within a fairly small footprint and provide pretty good value.
I look at all the parking lots that are along the Winooski. I'm like, oh, if every parking lot could have one of these, I just think about how much healthier our rivers would be. And we swim in them, we have our kids in them, we have our dogs in them.
Accumulation of these types of projects across the landscape has that downstream benefit to Lake Champlain. It might not seem like a big deal. You know, it's a rain garden, it looks a little bit small, but it really is having a big impact.
From Vermont's capital, we head to the much more bucolic farm fields of Addison County. That's where Ben Willis caught up with the director of the UVM Agricultural and Environmental Testing Lab, Josh Faulkner, who was working with a team of graduate and undergraduate students to study what happens to carbon and water that are sequestered in the soil after applying nutrients. Here's Ben.
Okay, ready? Will they be out here?
Yeah, it would be over here.
Oh.
So we're in Bridport, Vermont on a dairy farm, and we're at one of their fields that we have essentially split in two so that we can compare management practices, kind of a business as usual versus advanced soil health management type system.
One side of the field has been injected with manure, while the other side used a more traditional application on the surface, followed by tilling. There are a variety of tests underway to compare these approaches, including measuring how carbon is sequestered within the soil. And today, we join the researchers during a different phase as they use state-of-the-art gear to measure greenhouse gas emissions from each field.
We're looking at some greenhouse gas analyzers. These are from Lycor, and we've got a unit that measures CO2 and methane, and then one that measures nitrous oxide. It's exciting new technology because we get a measurement of the gas emissions out of the soil in 2 minutes.
Previously, these measurements were taken by using a syringe and brought back to the lab. Now, researchers get results right on their phone.
The CO2 and methane we have connected to the phone right now. So the CO2 build is the red line, parts per million CO2. And that's how we know that we have a good seal on the chamber.
We're part of a research network with multiple sites across the country in dairy producing areas, from Wisconsin to California, Texas. And all those different projects are really trying to answer the same question, though. They're trying to say, if we adopt these different soil health management practice systems, can we sequester as much carbon as we emit?
But what makes this site different is that it is one of only a few other sites across the country engaged in water monitoring work.
So at the far end of the field, we're measuring any runoff that comes off the surface of these fields and any runoff that comes out of the tile drainage networks in the fields.
Across the field, Joshua shows me some impressive ingenuity, courtesy of some of the best maple researchers in the state.
I needed a way to move water across this wide open ditch, 10 feet in the air. And I thought, how the heck am I going to do that? And I was like, Vermont, maple tap lines. So I called Mark Iselhart. I said, hey, how do they do that in Sugarbush, right? He said, okay, this is what you get. You get yourself some conduit, you get these high tension wires and some turnbuckles, and man, it worked like a charm. So there you go, maple extension coming in handy for water quality work. I'll move this out of the way. So these are all their automated water samplers. Each sampler goes to either the inlet of one of the towel filters or the outlet of a towel filter. or the inlet of the ditch filter or the outlet of the ditch filter for each side of the field.
Joshua shows me the tile drainage filters, which have begun yielding impressive results.
So here's the outlet, just 10 feet upstream here. We have another one of those gravel and iron filters for phosphorus buried underground. And these have been working really, really well. We've seen in about a year, we've seen removal of close to 98% of phosphorus from the tile drainage water. So they're just really performing well beyond our expectation. Now the test will be time, you know, how long can they perform like that? But thus far they're just.
That seems like sort of like a game changer kind of result.
Yeah, it doesn't, you know, you have that little box, the agri-drain, but that's the only land that's taken out of production. You know, this is underground, you could farm over top of it. We're really, you know, feeling pretty optimistic about these.
But the pure science isn't the only thing Joshua is concerned about.
You know, there's these science questions, and then there's this question of what does it really mean for the farm's bottom line to adopt various management practices. The general public, when they think about greenhouse gas emissions, I think they often think about electricity usage, burning diesel fuel, tractors, all those things. But really, the number one source of greenhouse gas emissions in agriculture on farms is really from the soil. Like it's close to somewhere between 40 and 50% of greenhouse gas emissions from producing food and crops actually comes from the soil, and so that's the number one source. And we're trying to, you know, better quantify that here in Vermont, and then hopefully with some of these practices understand if we can have a positive effect on that.
In Bridport, Vermont, I'm Ben Willis with Across the Fence.
Thanks, Ben. That's a wrap on our program for today. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.